Okay, well, welcome to the July 26, 2022 session, board meeting of the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors. The supervisors present this evening are Doug Rushton, Betsy DeReda, and me, Helen Wheatley. Our chair, TJ Johnson, was not able to make it this evening, so I am chairing the meeting as the vice chair. And I think that's about it for introductions. Do we have anybody to introduce? No. Okay, well, let's move on then to the agenda review. Yeah, Sarah.
I have one item. I would like to pull the ASRP Riverbend Ranch Anchor QEA contract amendment off of consent, but still for consideration in the regular meeting.
Okay. People good with that?
What are we doing with it? Moving it where?
Just pulling it out of the consent.
But where are we putting it? I thought she said we were putting it somewhere else. Maybe I misheard.
Yeah, I can add that under governance if you'd like, or up further, higher up in the agenda, whatever's your preference.
Yeah, governance seems like a logical place for it. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I see a thumbs up from Doug. Okay. Right.
With that change, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Okay.
And I second that second that amendment.
The emotions.
I almost said that.
All right.
Opie
So
Robinson.
moved by Doug and seconded by Betsy. So let's just do a roll call vote, I guess. This is what I have learned. So Doug, how do you vote?
Aye.
Betsy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So motion passes. So where are we here?
Consent agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm better off working off the screen rather than my piece of paper here. Okay. So, all right. So I guess we go ahead and move that one then. Can I entertain a motion on the consent agenda?
Should you read the items or not?
I don't know. Should I?
No,
No? Okay. I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay. Moved by Betsy. Do I get a second?
I'll second with the understanding that item E on the contract amendment is moved to governance.
Okay. Thank you for that refinement. So let's vote. Doug, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Betsy?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, Helen, the chair. So the motion passes. We're moving along here. The next item is public comment. Do we have anyone here who would like to make a public comment this evening? Okay. Sarah, is there a rule about asking 3 times or something like that? Or am I in some other universe about that?
I think people do ask multiple times, just to be clear that if there are members of the public present, that they're able to unmute themselves and be prepared to speak.
Yeah.
We don't have any members of the public present tonight either.
Okay. Yeah. So there being no members of the public present this evening, we can move on to item number 5, which is partner reports. So who do we have present this evening? We have Alina from ecology. Is anyone
Say
else?
that may I say that I met Becca, the new person at RCS. She was at the pasture management thing. Very engaging and capable person. She used to live here, so she's returning to her home. And she's very excited to be here.
Is she a new ecology person?
No, I'm talking about the NRCS
Oh,
new
okay.
person.
Oh, okay. Sarah, you had your hand up.
I was just gonna share, but Betsy's actually been able to meet Becca, which is lovely that she's started working, she's on the job now, and I'd like to have her at the next board meeting now that she'll have some time to get her feet under her, to meet you guys. So she'll be able to provide us with all of the great updates for NRCS. And yes, she's definitely very knowledgeable and related to Marty. So
Oh, she is.
yes.
I didn't know that. She's been in Texas for 7 years working for a conservation district also.
Can you give us her full name again?
Becca.
Becca?
I don't remember her last name. It was not
Okay.
easy to remember.
All right. Well, we'll find out soon. So that's great. Okay. So, so the next person up then is Alina Reynolds from the Department of Ecology. Thanks for coming this evening.
Thanks, Helen. I hope everyone's doing well and keeping well away from the hot. So I only have a couple of very quick updates for you all, not much, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Basically, our Centennial Grant staff are still accepting notice of intent in order to apply for our Centennial funding. And those workshops are going to be held this coming month. So they were accepting those NOIs or notice of intents back a week and a half ago. So that if you're intending to do that, you know, the timeline's shrinking. But other than that, that's all I've got for you all.
All right, thanks. Any questions? Where did you have a couple of slots? Did you fill those, or are they still open?
There's a couple. I believe there is still room. There's usually still room every year. So I believe if there was some interest, that might be met with some interest in return.
Okay.
You're talking about staff, aren't you, Helen?
Well, I was, but that's okay. I wasn't real clear about it, and it's fine because that was good information too.
Oh, good. My apologies. So we're down one staff person, and originally Ann Baxter, our senior non-point staff for this Puget Sound, was filling this role, and then Ann moved on to a hydropower position within our same team, and someone else within our team stepped into that position. I think you may have been in contact with Hannah Coe, who serves watersheds that drain into the Chehalis for Thurston County purposes. But she's going to step into that role, and then we got to fill Hannah's role. Game of musical chairs. I don't envy my supervisor.
Yeah. All right, thanks. And, Doug, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was sorry to hear last week my friend Polly Zem had passed away. She was deputy director of ecology for a number of years and was just, I think, a great person. I met her originally in Yakima when she was doing hazardous waste inspections, as I was. And I think she's a loss to the agency and the community and the whole state.
I knew her from serving on the Hanford Advisory Board while she was working on that issue many years ago. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
I did not have the privilege of meeting her in person, but for those of you who do know her, who did know her, excuse me, my condolences. It always hits our ecology family pretty hard when we have a loss. Thank you
Okay.
for your words.
Thanks. Okay. Jean's not here, I don't believe. So I don't think we have a report from the WSCC. So that gets us to Doug. What do you have to
Yeah,
tell us?
I'll make it quick. I did mention that August 4th, there's a projected announcement date for the WACD area meetings. So that's basically the only thing that I want to say about WACD. I want to make sure that you're aware of some of the things that I find particularly interesting in the NACD report that I did. There are 2,935 districts in the state, and Washington pays more dues than any district except 7. There's only 7 out of those 2,900 that pay more dues than we do. We pay $33,254 a year. So I think that does really well for us, speaks really well. A couple other items that they're doing at NACD that I thought were really kind of cool. One is they're doing an organizational audit to make sure that they're aligned the way we should be. And they've also started a fundraising plan. And as soon as I get copies of those, I will bring them back to our district so we can plagiarize and copy and use whatever fits for us. There's also going to be a new affiliate organization of the state directors. That would be like the Tom Salzers, the state association directors. That's not been done before. They've always been kind of more informal, but they want to give them more of a real voice in the whole organization. There was a lady named, I can't remember her last name, Jen from Jacksonville, Florida. She's the district manager there. She said 2 things that seemed pretty profound to me. One was progress moves at the speed of trust. I thought that was really intuitive, but we don't often act on it. And then the other one was you could consider this kind of a control thing. So it's got a little bit of negative, but I thought it still made sense. For CDs to control the narrative on our conservation work in our area, even if we're not doing the work. I thought those were 2 things worth sharing. I had over 13 pages of notes on this meeting. It was really something.
So Doug, you sort of saying that on that latter point that that it's worth sort of investing the energy for local conservation districts to tell their story within the context of all the work that's being done in the county.
That's how I took it. That's how I took it. I see it could be taken, though, as trying to take credit for other people's work.
Yeah, right. Well, I didn't hear it that way. But I think it's a good message. I mean, I think it's a good message because it's so clear that the conservation district is being looked to by other jurisdictions for a lot of the conservation work that has to happen. I mean, we have an example of that right now with, you know, some proposed amendments to the critical areas ordinance. And it's just, yeah, it's becoming more and more the case that I think conservation districts are going to carry a heavier and heavier load. And so it is worth thinking about how to get that message across. Because,
and I think it's, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I think it's actually started, as you may recall, the Conservation Commission got something like $29 million for conservation work across the state. And there's some feeling in some people's bosoms that they're trying to, the legislature is trying to overload the CDs to show that voluntary incentive-based conservation doesn't work. So we got to really make sure we perform on that $29 million and get the work done and have it be really good work. So that's part of the WACD concern. We've got all this money. We better use that money to what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Okay, well, any questions for Doug? All right then. Well, we're doing pretty good here. Let's move on to the mid-year budget review, which was a really interesting thing to look at. So
Yeah.
Sarah, do you want to go ahead and present?
Yeah, I'd love to intro that. So if you'll remember, the board has adopted a resolution that annually, mid-year, staff will submit a mid-year working budget. So this is a snapshot in time. This is as of June 30th. And this is our opportunity to say, where are we at on spending? Do we see any red flags? Do we need to make any big adjustments, or have we made some minor adjustments that are within the scope of our authority as staff, which there have been some reflected in there, and you'll see that. And just to make sure that we are on track with all of our spending and programs, as well as recognize if there have been any additional new funds. So we're still on a monthly basis incorporating those after the beginning of the fiscal year, but this is the snapshot of that mid-year budget. I have talked to TJ about that. He didn't have any major questions or points of concern. I didn't receive any of the same from David either prior to this meeting. So what I would love to do is, and I can pull it up on the screen as well, is just connect with the board to see if there's any comments, questions, or feedback about this mid-year working budget.
Right, so it's open for questions and comments. Okay, Doug, go ahead. You're probably muted. We can't hear you.
He's not talking, I don't think. Well, who's?
Oh.
Is it Sarah's going to present? I don't see her mouth moving.
Okay,
Sarah,
well, let's go ahead. Oh, maybe it was just a hand up from
the host
before.
muted me, so I'm not sure what that was. I wanted to make sure what we meant by mid-year. I wanted to know the dates that start and the end date for the mid-year.
Yeah, this is as of June 30th, and I apologize, Doug. I was trying to unmute you at the same time you unmuted, and so I muted you again. That was my fault.
Yeah, you did that.
But yes, as of June 30th.
Thank you.
So so it's open for questions, right? For at least this page, yeah. So I'm just curious. It's not a concern or anything, but I was looking at the, in the retail section, since we're sort of starting with that, at the plant sale. And I wasn't sure I understood the numbers because it seemed like we had a record turnout, but am I correct in seeing that there were less sales than anticipated, or?
No, there was just a miscalculation.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there was just a miscalculation that was in the prior approved budget. And so that calculation was corrected here.
Okay. Okay, have you had a chance, Doug and Betsy, to look over this? Do we want to sort of scroll down and ask questions as we go?
Well, yeah, sure. I don't understand looking. It's hard for me to look at this. So the green stuff is income, and then the orange is something, and then we come to expenses. What?
Sure. I can intro that a little bit too. So you're right. And sorry, I'm scrolling back up to the top. The green is income here. You'll see that, this whole green section. That next big header is on line 26. That's program allocations. So from that unrestricted income, the board has made certain allocations to different areas of our strategic plans for programmatic work. So you'll see it divided by program type. You'll see a little bit of detail underneath each strategic plan goal to see what it's funding. And then if we continue to scroll down, so that's a separate allocation. These are sort of diverted into a restricted use because they often pair with other restricted program dollars. So for example, under adult and youth education, South Sound Green, there's an investment in K-12 education here from our unrestricted money to support that program. And South Sound Green is a program that's primarily funded through other grant sources. So this is going into that program's master budget, which is a separate, sub spreadsheet that feeds into this overall budget. Moving down a little bit further, sorry, that header popped up. These are our unrestricted expenses. And this is really the area of focus that we look at because these are where there's a lot of, sometimes flexibility or ability to prioritize for the board on where our unrestricted dollars are going. Some of the things, we can't quite get around, like our office rent is a certain dollar amount, and if we stay in this building, it's going to be that dollar amount. But other things that you'll notice in here, let me just scroll down a little bit more, are things like there's some money set aside for board members travel and for board members to go to conferences and trainings. And so these are other priorities, staff professional development that the board has added some unrestricted money to, knowing that these are things that restricted dollars don't always pay for. And then our last category is our savings. So our reserve fund, as well as our Conservation Education Center savings fund. So that's a little overview of the different components of this budget split. And of course, these are just sub-tabs of those unrestricted expenses, insurances, travel expenses, supplies, and things like that. Overall, I would say there's not any red flags on the budget this year. You'll just notice a couple of notes in the program allocations section, which is what you have on your screen here. You can see like the habitat cost share. We have diverted and put those expenses in another program allocation category because we have funded that work through competitive grants this year. So you'll just see some of those types of allocations. The preservation, Working Lands Preservation Initiative. It doesn't mean we're not doing this work, that this budget has been reduced. It just means that we've received a grant this year that's covering those expenses at this time. And so that funding is diverted to other areas of need in the program allocation section.
Okay, thank you. Do you know offhand how much of that line that includes the Harvest Festival, how much is allocated for the Harvest Festival?
I can follow up with that in a moment. Yeah, let me get into another sheet and I'll answer that question. If others have questions, I can take those too. This is a PDF, so I can't open the back end of this one.
That's all I have.
Well, the only thing that I really noticed was that Microsoft 365 subscription. Was it surprisingly expensive, or is that an expense that's going to continue, or was that kind of just because of that whole conversion process? I mean, that's kind of where the cost was really. Yeah.
Yep, that's just the migration, and we held out until the bitter end, and they are they're discontinuing any kind of support, firewalls, software updates on their older software. So they're forcing a migration, and yeah, unfortunately, we're at that point, where we've held on to some technology for such a long time, and it now is not compatible with anything moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, I'd put a question in the chat. I didn't have any issues with how it was presented. I thought it was pretty clear. I would like to know, though, Sarah, if you have anything that raises your eyebrows or causes any concern at any level.
No red flags right now. We're right in the middle of construction season, right? This is construction season during the summer. And so on the restricted end of things, you'll see in, your monthly financial report moving forward, a lot more billings under the restricted section. So if you look at that grant report and you say, wait a minute, this grant is only 30% spent, or 40% spent, but we are well over 30 or 40% through the year. Just remember that project work happens a little bit differently and big chunks. So you'll see a lot of that spent through the summer and early fall. So that's always just a reminder, but no red flags at this point. I think we're doing great at managing and utilizing the budget that we planned for, and of course, continuing to track data. So next year's budget, is even more informed than this year.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions or comments, I think we can move on. So the
And
next,
Betsy,
that's right. You were going to present, you were busy trying to dig something up. I forgot.
Yeah, Betsy, if you're okay, I'll keep looking for that while we move through the meeting and follow up. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, sure, or even tomorrow,
Okay. Great.
Okay.
I'll do that.
All right. Well, for the next item under governance, Sarah, I guess were you planning to do presentation? It's kind of too bad that TJ isn't here. But
yeah, we had an opportunity to check in before the board meeting. So he did ask me to bring back the comparison table that was discussed at the work session last month. So we have that on record. If you'll remember, staff presented this comparison table that has our existing Timberland Bank and Wells Fargo credit. And we compared that with a couple of other banks, these two rows to the top. And then if you'll remember, staff ranked those.
We're not seeing it. We're not seeing your screen. There we go. There it is.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Betsy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remember, staff ranked that at the bottom of the screen here. After analyzing, user accessibility, what are the interest rates and fees, which ones have the strongest and, climate friendly policies that the board is interested in, and came up with Beneficial State Bank as our option that meets all of those criteria. That was an item that the board determined that we would move to this meeting, to the July meeting, to take formal action on. So what staff would be looking for is a motion to make this migration and open new bank accounts with Beneficial State Bank and transition and close any existing accounts.
I would be proud to make that motion.
okay, well, can we, Doug has his hand up, and I would like to know, I mean, you've been able to talk with David and TJ offline about this, I'm assuming. were you able to check in with David, Sarah?
I have not been able to have conversation with David about this in particular. He did receive these materials, but
Okay.
we have not connected about this. If the board would feel more comfortable making this decision at a meeting with more supervisors present, there's not a pressing need to do this today. But this is just an item of business that was on slated for this agenda.
Okay, Doug.
Sorry for the slight delay
there you
there. Helen, you asked the exact question that I was going to ask. How does the rest of the board feel? And if there's no pressing need, I would prefer to wait to make sure that those guys are okay with it, because we're all going to have to live with the decision. And I would point out something again that I pointed out last time. While climate change is important, there's some other issues I think we need to make sure are included, like social justice, land use, the things that are important within our mission and our vision statement.
So Doug, are you asking to see a little bit more information specifically about beneficial? I mean, maybe that would be helpful if we could hear or see more about it. I mean, we sort of we talked about this chart last time, and we get a sense of how it does comparatively to meet the sort of the business needs of the district. But yeah, maybe a sense of its personality. You want to address that?
Yeah, and how much of a burden would that place on staff to try to figure that out? I mean, generally, if they're climate friendly, the other stuff usually is similar, but I don't know that for sure, and I don't want to presume it.
I'm sure it's on their website.
Yeah.
I've been very impressed with beneficial. I think it was in the, let's see, let me back up in the 2016 election, they were very transparent about their concern, which really surprised me. They sent out a letter, saying, don't worry, we're going to keep doing what we do. And I was really kind of surprised that they kind of took a political stance on it and didn't mind doing it.
Yeah, well, I've never heard of them before, so maybe that's just my lack of education, lack of
That's because
experience.
I think they only have two or three
I
physical
wasn't
banks.
asking for a response.
Well, Betsy, we've had Doug suggest tabling it, but you've suggested that you're very comfortable with moving forward.
No, I'm fine waiting.
Okay. All right. Well, let's table it then.
And I'll just draw your attention really quickly. If you can see my screen here with the great infographics on it. This was one of the documents that we shared in May. It doesn't elaborate too much, but it does show some of the other sectors of investment that Beneficial State Bank makes, some of their other priorities, like education and affordable housing and social justice. So those are part of what the banking world calls socially responsible banking, where environmental sustainability is a component of it, along with the other things that Doug mentioned. So we're happy to share some more information and tee that up for August.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looks good. That'll be a quick one. Okay, well, let's move on then. So the other governance item that we have is developing the topic list for the August meeting.
No, the ASRP B. We haven't done B.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I was working off my piece of paper there. Yep, I forgot that we moved that. Okay, yeah, let's do that first.
So the only reason that I wanted to pull this off of consent is that I noticed a typo in this contract that we need to amend. And just pulling that up, it's the section under insurance. This insurance clause had a 2-year post project insurance requirement for our consultants that are doing design work on our Riverbend Ranch project. Really, that should be 10 years. That's a stipulation of the funding source. So it's just not a negotiable element. And so I just wanted to share with the board that that revision, although small, is significant. And so I wanted to call that out and then put that no other changes have been made from the version that was on consent.
Okay, so do we need well, I guess, can we have a resolution here to change it from 2 to 10? Could somebody put that forward?
And Helen, if you'd like, you can move to approve this version as seen, as.
Oh,
amended.
can I? Okay. All right. Well, then, so moved that we approve the version that has been changed from a 2-year tail to a 10-year tail.
Okay, I second it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and, my dog votes aye, and I do too. So Betsy
Aye.
and Doug.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. That's fixed. Let's move on to developing the agenda and the work session for next month. So we have that somewhere, don't we? The proposal, what we have so far.
Coming up on screen. Okay. Can you see this August 23rd?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
There you go.
There it is.
There we go. There we go. If we scroll down just oh.
Oh. I don't know what happened there. Let's try that again. Okay.
All righty. So for the work session, it looks like so far there's nothing really new or added beyond sort of what we always do. So Adam's going to present on something, some data, some good stuff.
Yeah, it'll have a better title there, but him and TJ have been working on something in particular for this.
And where are we at with the equipment, new equipment ideas? Is that going to come up again, or is it just in a sort of feedback stage?
Yeah, I think that that's one that we will pick up again a little bit later this fall. There is some proposal for some specific equipment through Sustainable Farms and Fields moving forward that we've been working on with the Grazing Association. But yes, there was a recommendation to do a broader survey of the larger community, and that's something that we'll need to work with our outreach staff probably in the fall and winter time frame to develop and publicize. I think that was a great idea from the board at the last meeting to expand those horizons a little bit and continue to collect some more data.
Well, Marguerite was doing her job last night with the pasture workshop, just so you know. And may I want to not forget to tell you this. Marcy from the Farmland Trust said they have a small tractor and I believe rotavator, and maybe it was a brush hog. There was a second implement that they're looking to rehome, maybe give, maybe sell. They wanted us to know that.
I will follow up on that and ask some more questions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you
Okay.
for sharing that.
Okay, Doug, you had your hand up.
Yes, I suggest that we add after the Conservation Education Center development that we had this time, that we add a discussion on potential resolutions.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I agree. And then Sarah had mentioned earlier a suggestion about maybe asking Danny to come present, but it seems like if we're going to talk about resolutions, maybe we might want to think about that for September as a possibility. Because that looks pretty good for the work session. All right, so anything to say about this, Sarah?
We can take the mid-year budget off because that has happened. Not at this time, although I will say that the board can expect additional addendums and contracts during this month. And yeah, I think, so we'll populate those as those awards come in, but that'll be probably there'll be a much bigger consent agenda than what is currently posted.
We need to add the banking thing again.
Yes.
Climate friendly banking, I think it was called, yeah.
All right, anything else? Okay, well, I think we're good on that then. So if you're ready, just let me know when you're sort of ready, Sarah. And we can move on to the next item, item number 8, which is executive session. So let's see, what time is it now? It's 7:12 now, and we anticipate this taking about 10 minutes. So, so it looks like we can move to executive session to discuss the performance of the executive director, take about 10 minutes for that discussion, and then reconvene. Do you want to lead us through the process for doing that, Sarah?
Yeah, do you want to mention who's going to be in that executive session?
Well, since you suggest it, yes. I believe it will be Doug Rushton, myself, Betsy DeVreda, and Ben Cushman. And I
Not
think
me.
that.
No, I don't go into those.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No, I just stay out here. I'm
you do?
available if you need to call me in, but the
Oh, all
employment
right.
discussions, I don't go in unless you need me.
Okay.
So.
Well, okay, so yeah, so this should take, well, do you want to explain the process for how we go into the executive session?
Sure, and just for the record too, it'll be myself, at least for the beginning of the executive session. So yes, I will send an invitation to the 3 board members. We'll clear out the room here at the district office, and then we'll move into that executive session. So you'll see a little dialogue box pop up. You'll click that. The rest of the participants will stay in a general meeting room, and then we'll be able to meet for 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Just hang tight. I'm going to pause the recording. All right.
Was taken. Oh, okay. Now we're back from our executive session, and no action was taken during that session. Do I need to state the time frame of it?
Which is no longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. We took no longer than the 10 minutes that we planned to take. So that's that. And there's nothing else on our agenda other than adjournment, unless somebody wants to throw something in. Yeah, Doug.
I've been thinking about this for probably months. We used to have a slogan that went with our logo called "Local Solutions to Local Problems," and I think that's a little dated. I think it still is relevant, though. And I thought maybe we should put on our letterhead, or at least something like this: conservation for our future, for our community's future. You know, kind of a forward-looking thing. Anyway, just want to plant a seed there to think about that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do you want to bring it up again, maybe during the, well, I don't know, during the work session or something? Maybe we can wiggle that in somehow, like just,
Sure.
yeah. Okay. Well, if it's okay with everybody, with that, I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned.
I think we
2
moved
minutes
to,
early, too.
Do we need to? I think the chair can do that, no? Do we need a motion? I don't think we do. Yeah,
Ben?
I don't think we need a motion.
Okay.
I
I
think it's-
thought we always did, that's all. Okay. That's fine by me.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Good job, Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Good to see you all. Good to see Sarah in person.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm gonna